I was starting to put my panels out to put this booth together. Got my back panel there. I stuck the filters in where they go, and I've got two of the side panels laid out there. I've got the little impact driver ready to go, and I've got some screws set up, so I'll start to put those side panels and screw the back panel into those, and we'll put one of the top pieces on, and we'll see how it goes from there. Okay, paint booth is all together. That went together just like I planned. I don't have this end on. I just put it in when I get the stabilizers and stuff in there to paint, then close it up. Now I got to get some more light. The light fixtures are high in the shop there, and plus I didn't have any in half of this out or bay because the wings block the light from coming down to the floor there anyway. Then I got to make some racks to hang those control surfaces on. And once I get all that done, then I can put floor down in there. I'll put visqueen down on the floor, but I'm not going to do that till I'm ready to start putting stuff in there to paint. Getting some lights put up in here. I had some in a little shed that I built for a paint shed a few years ago, but that shed's not big enough for doing this, and it's kind of leaking and stuff. I would have had to redo it. This is going to be a whole lot better paint facility than that was, or booth than that was. And I had the 4 lights I took out of the paint shed. I put them over here on the right side, and I went down to the store and got all of the cheap ones they had there, and then the more expensive ones. And so anyway, I got enough lights to hang up in here to do a pretty good job of lighting this thing. Now I'm staggering those up and down intentionally. I want to spread the light out. There's the paint booth with all the lights hooked up in it. I got 6 of them on one side and 5 on the other side. I've got them staggered on both sides, and then I've got them staggered up and down. So hopefully they throw the light out at a better pattern. I had to disassemble all the light fixtures and screw them to the studs in those panels. Now I've got to make up some kind of hangers, stands to hang the control surfaces up from. And once I get those made, then I can put the floor down and get ready to start painting. Working on some kind of a rack to hold those control surfaces up, elevators and horizontal and stuff. When I paint them, I don't want to stick something through the rafters there, through the ceiling, and hook on the rafters there. They'd probably work okay, but they're not really made for holding any kind of weight or anything other than just themselves. And the elevators are 5 feet long each, and the horizontals are 4 feet long each. So I thought if I built something that would hold those, I could build one rack that would maybe hold 2 pieces to hold one horizontal and one elevator, and then build 2 racks, and I could have it done. And I was hoping to try to avoid making anything out of wood, because wood has the sawdust on it and it's hard to keep the dust and stuff down on it, so I wanted to make it all metal if I could. But I've got these little stands here. These are something my wife salvaged from the pool. They were scabbed together there in the city shop, and they held rollers on them that they used for rolling and unrolling the cover over the pool, and they did something else, and so they got rid of these, and she brought them home. They're made out of stainless steel. Well, I fixed those up a few years back with some straight pieces of aluminum strap on there. It's about 2-inch wide aluminum, and I stood those up and used those to hold my wing struts, lift struts, when I got new lift struts, and used them to hold them up for painting them. So I went and dug those out, and they're not as tall as I would have liked. I wanted to make sure and get those control surfaces hanging up high enough that I don't have to get down on my knees and stuff, that I can see the lower portions of them and I can get around them real well. So I wanted it to make it about 6 foot high or so. Anyway, they weren't quite tall enough the way they were, so I got a piece of 1x4 and scabbed it on there. I drilled a hole in the top of it, 3/4 inch hole in the top of it, which that 1/2 inch conduit slid through. So there's one of them. Now the second one, it looks like I'm going to have to build something similar to that, but I'm going to have to make it out of 2x4s for the stands uprights. I do have another piece of conduit to use for the stretcher on that, for the hanger on that. I got another rack made up for hanging those controls. Now this is not meant to be a permanent shop fixture. They're certainly not going on display anyplace at some cabinet makers or woodworkers competition or showpiece. They're just a one and done type thing. I got a couple of 2x4s. I cut them off to 6 foot 2 inches. Then I measured up 6 foot, drilled out a 3/4 inch hole through them. Then I found some scrap pieces of 1x. Put a couple screws in those off to each side for a stabilizer, and then those diagonal piece that comes down, the brace piece that comes down, is one of the pieces of the wood that broke that I'd cut out for these studs in these panels. Not much, but they do the job. It took me longer to dig out the wood and the tools and stuff that I needed than it did to put it all together. Now the next step, we'll go back up to the basement and dig out all of those control surfaces and go over them with the iron again, make sure all the seams are down and just make sure they're all cleaned up and stuff.